Hello! Welcome back to Drunk Storytime with Quefish. I'm Quefish. This is the drink. I found this. I found this at Walmart. In like, it was like $2.50. So I am either going to die or I'm going to get drunk very easily. It's called Lucky Duck because, you know, we all love our ducks. So, but I saw it and it's like, it's one of those things that I don't know whether or not I'm brave enough to try it, but obviously I'm brave enough to try it. So my $2.50 wine, it's either, you know, vinegar oh, that came out pretty easily, which kind of makes me sad. I like that. But anyway, so this particular video that I'm starting, the story that I'm starting with tonight is by Summerofspock, and it is. I read some of it, or no, I read it, but then I started to realize exactly how badly I wanted to read it here. And so even though I was reading it, I was like ignoring that I was reading it, because I couldn't stop reading because it was so good. But I also still wanted to have like that cold read that I do. So I don't know, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't have worked. Oh, that actually does not smell bad. So I'm a lucky duck so far. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. But this might need some Chambord later. So I'm going to start out with, what is it? Porn tapes and trouser snakes, or is it the other way around? Oh my goodness. I was not prepared. I was too busy getting this ready. So, trouser snakes and porno tapes. I got it backwards. So, I'm going to get started on this. When I get back, it may have Chambord in it. I'm not entirely sure yet. It's not bad. It's very sweet. It's Riesling. But I'm going to get started, and I'll be back. I'm back. So as I was drinking the Lucky Duck, I felt unluckier and unluckier. So I had to pop in some Chambord because it got assier and assier. Anyway, so this is going to be a longer video. It is a longer story. It's 4 chapters. It's only 5,900 words, but so this is Trouser Snakes and Porno Tapes by Summerofspock. Summary. Oh, adult content. Rated E. Summary. It is the 1970s, and hell wants Crowley to explore the temptation possibilities of filmed pornography. In the 70s. We've all seen at least one 70s porn. Aziraphale offers to help, aka Crowley makes the porno his porn stash deserves. Oh god. Crowley's 1970s mustache, god, it reminds me of my dad's mustache when I was a kid. It was just huge and bushy. Anyway, chapter 1, 1973. Crowley's yearly review is going great. Beelzebub has some terrifically terrible things to say about his M25 idea. If it gets hell off his back, then it was worth the late nights in the mud moving markers. Mud moving markers? He's almost proud, actually. A little bit of work for now, for years of no work later. That is what I do every day. It's all going swimmingly when Beelzebub pauses and strokes their chin thoughtfully. I've heard word of a new human invention. Pornography. Crowley has to bite back a laugh. Porn has existed basically since Eden. Humans are horny buggers. They're filming it these days. Big productions, Beelzebub says. We were talking in the council about the potential for swift dissemination of lust via this new technology. We would like you to pioneer it. Crowley snorts. He can't help himself. What? You want me to direct a porno? Beelzebub leans forward and flashes a grin, all sharp little teeth. No, we want you to be in one. See now, do they really want that? What form of want is that? Do they want it? Anyway, the thing is, Crowley doesn't like to use the word virgin, but that's what he is. Back in the heyday of orgies, he tried. He really had. But a human had touched his dick once and he nearly shot out of his skin in disgust. They're just mayflies, these little human beings. Here one day, gone the next. The age difference alone skeeves him out. And Crowley wasn't about to proposition a demon. Imagine having sex with a Haster type. The mere thought makes Crowley shiver with disgust. And now, Hell wants him to send in a dirty film. He wonders if a video of him wanking would do. Would do me. But they also want it sent out into the world for consumption, and a 10-minute video of Crowley playing with himself isn't exactly interesting. Says who? So he goes to the one being who might be able to figure out a way for him to wriggle out of this. Aziraphale is fantastic at loopholes, and Crowley really needs a loophole. The discussion goes where most of their discussions do, directly to the bottom of a bottle, or several. Like me. Pornography? Really? Aziraphale repeats in disbelief. He's sunk deep in his chair. Dirty movies aren't even new. I know, Crowley cries, flailing a bit. He always flails a bit when he's drunk. Too many wobbly limbs. And you've thought about simply pleasuring yourself? Aziraphale confirms, sloshing through his words. He looks very pretty today. He's got a slightly out-of-fashion cravat tucked into the open collar of his shirt, and it makes his neck look very biteable. Crowley wishes he were allowed to bite. Has done for years. He's pretty sure biting is off the table, alongside kissing, fondling, cuddling, and all the other little wistful things Crowley thinks about when he lies awake. Why don't we make it? Aziraphale says. His eyes light up like he's just discovered the most wonderful idea. Crowley nearly spits out his wine. You want to have sex with me? On camera? He says around a garbled mouthful of Cabernet. Not particularly, Aziraphale says, wrinkling his nose, but I'm willing. And if you don't want to rope in some poor human, I really am your best option. Well, that's a little insulting. Willing. All right, fine. It's not going to be weird or anything, Crowley asks, even though he knows it's definitely going to be weird. Aziraphale shrugs. What's a bit of slap and tickle between friends? Ah, fuck. Sounds like biting is on the table then. Aziraphale declares they absolutely must do research, which is how they end up at the sex shop down the street, purchasing what has to be far too much lube, a rather hopeful-looking dildo. And a pile of pornographic films that Aziraphale says will help them generate ideas. The poor cashier, Marjorie, her name tag says, doesn't even blink as she rings them up. She's probably seen way worse. As they walk out, Crowley finally asks, "What's a dildo for?" "Variety," Aziraphale replies, and that's that. Crowley is tasked with obtaining a camera and tripod. Easy enough, really. They decide to film the thing at Crowley's flat because Aziraphale says there's no more room and Hell will recognize the place. Oh, there's more room and Hell will recognize the place. I, for some reason, was thinking about the bookshop. They don't expect it to be professional quality, do they? Aziraphale asks as they settle in for a night of pornography and popcorn. One of my best friends and I, there used to be this series on HBO called, I don't even remember, but it was like all behind the scenes stuff. And that was what we would do like on Saturday nights, is the two of us would get together and laugh at this ridiculous porn behind the scenes series. Probably didn't have popcorn though. Should have had that. Certainly hope not, Crowley replies. He does not want to have to put in that much effort. Maybe a post-filming miracle can up the quality. Speaking of quality, the films they've purchased vary wildly. Some are artsy, while others really are just endless scenes of some well-endowed bloke fucking a girl for what seems to be far too long to be comfortable. The girl seems to enjoy it, but that's probably acting. Do we need to do more than one scene? Aziraphale asks. He's been taking notes the entire time, scribbling things on a notepad in his elegant script. Crowley can't read it from the angle he's at. He probably doesn't want to, actually. Most of these are over an hour and include more than one sexual encounter. So far, the average is 3.5 encounters, though usually there is more than one partner. If it's just going to be us, I think we may be able to get away with fewer instances of intercourse. During this monologue, Crowley can feel his face get hotter and hotter. There had been a certain level of clinical detachment at the idea of doing this with Aziraphale, but it's starting to feel very, very real. I'd also greatly appreciate it if you shaved your mustache, Aziraphale says. Crowley's hand flies to his face. Excuse me? This is fashionable. I don't fancy mustache burn on my face. Oh no, that means kissing. Crowley's stomach does a little dance at the thought. I'm not shaving it, Crowley says. Besides, I'll bet you'll like it. Adds texture. Aziraphale now narrows his eyes at him. Fine. Should we figure out an angle to hide my face? It's the day of. Bright and early, because Aziraphale had said something about the sooner the start, the sooner they could finish. Crowley wants to be offended, but he finds he sort of agrees. Why would we need to hide your face? Crowley asks, confused. There's a gnawing anxiety making itself known in his gut, worming around in there. He doesn't like it, but he doesn't know what to do about it. He's about to have sex for the first time. With Aziraphale. On camera. Won't your superiors recognize me? Nope, Crowley says, looking up from his efforts to stabilize the camera with its reels. He's not looking forward to editing this nonsense. We don't exactly have pictures of all the heavenly agents on Earth. What did you think? Hell was plastered with wanted posters with your face on it? Aziraphale glances away, and it's absolutely telling. Crowley drops his hands. Wait, are there pictures of me in heaven? Aziraphale rolls his eyes. Well, you are the Serpent of Eden, originator of sin. You're something of a persona non grata up there. Well, Crowley says, fiddling with his mustache and feeling very chuffed. What other demons are on your wanted list? You spelled that wrong. Aziraphale's eyes flicker away again. Wait, is it just me? We have sort of a wall, all right? One side is the employee of the century, and the other is the adversary of the century. The photo is quite unflattering. Aziraphale points out, like that's going to do anything to change the fact that Crowley is apparently criminal number one in Heaven's eyes. He preens, and Aziraphale looks ready to throw a pillow at him. Finally, the camera locks into place, and then Crowley gives it a stern look. It had better do a good job. Crowley knows a good incinerator that should handle electronics just fine. So, are we going with the delivery person storyline? Aziraphale asks. I don't see why we need a storyline, as Crowley says again. They've had this argument 3 times. It's how you draw people in. Every good film needs a narrative. This is not a good film, Crowley points out, and Aziraphale makes a frustrated noise. We just need to fuck. I'll send the tape to hell and then we can forget about it. We shall see, Aziraphale says in that infuriating know-it-all voice. When we're editing, we can make the final decision. It won't be difficult to shoot some additional footage. Crowley rolls his eyes and groans. He's rolled his eyes more in the past 3 days than he has in the past century. His eyes are liable to fall out of his head at this point. Aziraphale snaps his fingers and the camera starts rolling. Ready? Here we go. Just like that, then, Crowley asks, hesitating by his coffee table. Aziraphale's on the couch, staring at him expectantly. We must get started somehow. Kissing, then? Quite right. They'd made a list of sex acts to go through. I'm just seeing like a, well, it wouldn't be a whiteboard back in the day, but, you know, just like a place to check mark. Today would be hand jobs. And after they watched the final product, they'd do a few other things, suck jobs and the like, before working up to full penetration. Crowley maybe died a little inside every time Aziraphale said fellatio, but he'd soldiered on. Fellatio. Aziraphale stands and comes to stand in front of Crowley. They stare at each other. I guess I'll just... Right. Crowley had always expected his first kiss with Aziraphale to be magical. He had imagined it so many times. He thought it would be some romantic moment. He would have just confessed his feelings. And they'd share a kiss for the ages. It would be fireworks. It would be music. It would be not Aziraphale jamming his tongue into Crowley's mouth like it's a rapier and he wants to stab Crowley's throat. Crowley yanks back. What are you doing? Kissing, Aziraphale says, sounding very put upon. Have you never kissed someone before? Have you? Aziraphale says sharply. I did try to have sex with you humans, so yes, just didn't go past kissing, Crowley says, just as sharp. Aziraphale has a look in his eye like he's about to get very huffy. Crowley should have known it would go like this. Well, what's wrong with it? Aziraphale demands. You don't need to jam your tongue in there, Crowley says. Go slower. The movies we watched didn't go slow, Aziraphale points out, and Crowley sighs. How about I personally don't want your tongue licking the back of my molars, so we are going to go slower. Fine, Aziraphale bites out, and Crowley kisses him again. It is slightly better. Barely. Aziraphale's tongue is still going far too deep into Crowley's mouth, but it feels less pointy this time. Pointy. Blech. He does pointedly jam his tongue at the underside of Aziraphale's as if to say, back off! Except Aziraphale just makes a little choked off noise that makes Crowley think he likes the jabbing. He likes it. The kissing might be lackluster, but it's still Aziraphale, so Crowley's tight pants are definitely growing tighter. Aziraphale pulls back and his eyes are glassy, which gives Crowley a thrill of pride. Sword tongues or no, that's a good look on Aziraphale's face. Sword tongues. Couch? Aziraphale asks breathlessly, so Crowley pushes him back until he drops onto the couch and Crowley can crawl into his lap. The move doesn't quite work because Aziraphale's coat catches behind his knees and he loses balance. His shoulder slams into Crowley's solar plexus, knocking the breath from his chest. Fuck, he wheezes, and Aziraphale dumps him onto the couch so he can toss his coat aside. Are you all right? Aziraphale asks, peering down at him. Yeah, fine, Crowley says, rubbing at his sternum. I'm going to take your trousers off. Yeah, we're good. Just lose the pants. Aziraphale nods and Crowley undoes his zip. His hands shake with anticipation, and when he slips them inside, he finds... Aziraphale? Yes? Aziraphale asks. You haven't got... Oh! Right. Crowley feels a penis spring up under his hand, which puts him in a mind of sea sponges. He grimaces. He gropes around a bit until Aziraphale pushes his hand away. I'm sorry, but it brings to mind the like the phrase that you see and you hear like all the time, you know, like the penis just springs out. It's just like, oh well, it wasn't there and now it is, and this time it really wasn't there and now it is. It's just boing. Sorry. You're not making a clay pot. Be careful, he admonishes. Let's kiss again. I think we were getting better. And they were. This third kiss, snogging session, is much improved. Aziraphale seems to have learned less is more vis-a-vis tongues, and Crowley enjoys himself a great deal. Heat begins to build between his legs, liquid and good, and he rocks down into Aziraphale's lap, greedily drinking in the angel's moans. Maybe this won't be so bad. Slightly embarrassing, sure, but enjoyable. Aziraphale's hand drops to his trousers and he fumbles with Crowley's zip for an inordinate amount of time. How hard is a zipper? I mean, you know, bra, you know, trying to get behind there. Okay, fine, but over a minute at least. Growing frustrated, Crowley knocks Aziraphale's hand away and undoes the fastenings himself. They knock hands as they both try to touch each other. Aziraphale manages to get to Crowley first, wrapping his hand around his dick in a way that hurts. He hisses and elbows Aziraphale in the stomach. Lighten up down there. Oops. Sorry, got a bit excited, I think. Bruised dick or no. That makes Crowley smile. Aziraphale is excited. A far cry away from just willing. With some finagling, they manage to get their hands on each other. The angle is awkward, and Crowley's wrist twinges, but then he pumps his hand up and down Aziraphale's dick twice and feels it twitch just before something hot and sticky drips over his fingers. Semen. He has Aziraphale's semen on his hand. It's vaguely disgusting, but also stupidly erotic. Maybe that's just what sex is like. Crowley thinks idly as he removes his hand. And he's right. Aziraphale's eyes are closed and he looks wonderfully blissed out. His hand has stopped its movements in Crowley's pants, so Crowley jams his own hand in there and jerks himself off. Aziraphale's spunk slicks the way as a bit better, and the mere idea that it's Aziraphale's release on his hand, on his skin, has Crowley tumbling over the edge embarrassingly fast. Oh, Aziraphale says. Crowley drops his head onto Aziraphale's shoulder. His face is red. He knows it. but he thinks Aziraphale might be equally embarrassed for once. Aziraphale snaps his fingers. I suppose we watch the final product, see what needs tweaking? They both clean up before setting up the film. It plays back, projecting on the wall despite the clear absence of a projector. Crowley thinks he's going to be mortified watching himself have sex, but it turns out that there's nothing much to see. Sure, there's some kissing, which looks just as awful from a distance as it felt experiencing it. Once they're on the couch, they sort of look like they're falling over each other in a tangle of limbs, and not once does the camera catch a glimpse of a dick, which Crowley thinks might be oh God, I'm having a problem with this word. Antithetical? Did I read that right? More wine is needed. To the point of pornography. The reel plays out, and they sit in silence for a moment. Aziraphale breaks it. Well, that was quite terrible. Crowley groans and drops his head into his hands. Yes, it was. Vaguely disgusting, but oddly erotic. Fucking love that line. Chapter 2. Is there a number? Okay, no, it's just chapter 2. Content warning for a really poorly communicated blowjob and facial. I wish that we would get those in real life. Crowley tips Aziraphale's hips back in an effort to move him slightly on the couch. You know, I thought there would be more mouths involved. Crowley said, I thought there would be more mouths involved, Aziraphale says huffily, even as he shuffles back on his elbows. Crowley grunts in frustration. Aziraphale is laid out in front of him, a beautiful expanse of pale softness. He's got stretch marks along his hips, running down his thighs like the barest caress of fingernails have left marks behind. He is perfect. And he's looking expectantly between Crowley and his dick, which sort of ruins the whole mood. It do be like that, though. I'm trying to make sure the camera can actually see what's happening, Crowley says pointedly. Aziraphale shimmies into the cushion, and his prick wobbles back and forth with the movement like an excited flagpole. How he has sustained an erection through all their rearranging, Crowley has no idea. Anxiety had withered his own stiffy. I love all of these words. Nearly 30 minutes ago. Can we kiss again? Aziraphale asks suddenly, startling Crowley from where he's sitting on his haunches, considering the best angle of attack. His stomach jumps at the idea that Aziraphale wants to kiss him. But they can't because, no. Kissing looks terrible on camera. And besides that, the no-tongue kissing makes Crowley feel things. Lovey-dovey, non-demonic things that he prefers not to think about. And besides that, the no-tongue kiss... No, I just read that sentence. Okay, for being like $2.50, it's doing the job. Sorry. I'll read it again anyway. And besides that, the no-tongue kissing makes Crowley feel things, lovey-dovey, non-demonic things that he prefers not to think about. Aziraphale pouts at him. A very specific pout that once had Crowley traveling 90 miles to find a specific flavor of Swiss roll. I just can't get in the mood without kissing. The pout grows in intensity. I don't even want to watch this video to see what that face looked like. Crowley gives Aziraphale's dick a meaningful look. It looks back with its one rather small eye. Seem to be doing just fine to me. The pout turns churlish. Physical arousal is not mental arousal, Crowley. You're being reductive. Crowley groans dramatically. Why did he fall in love with such a bastard? And why did they have to end up fucking for the first time in front of a camera? Because you are a coward who won't say how you feel, he says to himself. Fine, Crowley bites out, but we're not filming it. Aziraphale gives a pleased wriggle that makes his cock bounce some more. Jolly good. Crowley sighs and shimmies up the couch until he's straddling Aziraphale's thighs. Remember, less tongue. Aziraphale's expression turns deadly serious. Yes, of course. Tongue imports her. He even gives a little salute that has Crowley groaning. What an idiot. He leans down to kiss him, and for a moment it's blessedly soft. His hands press into the plush expanse of Aziraphale's chest. He can feel the twitch of his cock against his stomach, which causes an answering response in his own trousers. He brushes their mouths together, and Aziraphale's lips part on a soft exhalation. Aziraphale cups his jaw and scrapes his teeth over Crowley's lower lip in a way that goes straight to Crowley's gut. His previously anxious penis wakes up a bit. Crowley pulls back because it's all a bit much and wheezes, "See, that was better." Aziraphale hums. Yes, good. But I do like the tongues, you know. Noted, Crowley says flatly. Now, I'm gonna go down on you. Just try to last more than 30 seconds. We need to fill an hour or so. If there was a story, we wouldn't need to have so much sex on camera, Aziraphale says again, rising up on his elbows to watch as Crowley slithers down his body. Oh, shut up about the bloody plot of the thing. With that, he snaps his fingers and the camera clicks to life. Aziraphale has been naked in front of him for quite a while now, and Crowley had had his dick in his hand not 2 hours ago, but being eye to eye with the thing is a bit different. Yeah. Tally ho, I guess. He grumbles and goes for it. There's a burst of strangely bitter flavor across his tongue as he holds Aziraphale's cock in his mouth. The skin is hotter than Crowley had expected, and he almost jerks back in surprise. He would have done if Aziraphale's hand hadn't found its way into his hair, gripping tight and forcing him to take his dick deeper. Oh my goodness, Crowley. Aziraphale gasps, and it sounds like the world's greatest porn performance, but when Crowley glances up, Aziraphale looks truly blissed out. His eyes are shut, mouth parted, cheeks flushed a cherubic pink. The flicker of pride in Crowley's chest goes a long way to assuaging his nerves, and he bobs his head a bit. Aziraphale hisses and yanks on his hair. Teeth! Oh, shit. Crowley says, mouth full of cock. He moves his lips around, feeling very much like a munching horse. As he tries to sheath the teeth. It must work because Aziraphale is moaning again. Probably louder than necessary, but he looks happy enough, so Crowley keeps at it. The hand in his hair turns into background noise as they find a tentative rhythm. Every once in a while, Crowley will taste that same bitter taste. It's a bit gross, like yogurt that's gone slightly off. And then Crowley makes a mistake. He gets greedy. Hubris has always been the downfall of man, but it's also the downfall of Crowley. He braces his hands on Aziraphale's soft hips and takes him all the way to the root, forgetting about his gag reflex until it kicks in. His throat convulses around Aziraphale's cockhead, and he tries to pull off so he doesn't retch. Aziraphale yanks at his hair, and Crowley isn't sure if he's trying to help or trying to hold him in place, but it doesn't matter, because Crowley's teeth catch on the thatch of Aziraphale's pubic hair, causing both of them to yelp as Crowley lurches back, still gagging, but now with added pubes in his mouth, like a bonus. Nope. Luckily enough, that's exactly when Aziraphale comes. No warning, just a short gasp, and then hot spurts of jizz are splattering Crowley's face. Some get in his mouth, and then in his eye, which burns like Satan's asshole. Out of pure idiocy, Crowley tries to sit up to wipe it away before his eyeballs burn clean off, but he overbalances. He falls off the couch cushion and squarely onto his ass. Crowley has never been one to own rugs, so his butt gets a nice introduction to his very hard, very cold floor as spunk drips off his face, and he tries to peel blonde pubes out of his mouth. Crowley hears the click of the camera shut off, and when he looks up at Aziraphale, the angel looks apologetic. That took me by surprise, my dear. I would have warned you. Took you by surprise? Crowley shrieks. He's still scraping pubes out of his mustache, and now they're all gunked up with curly hair. It might be the most mortifying thing that's ever happened to him, and he once fell off a horse in front of the King of Spain. On the bright side, a money shot is integral to the genre. Crowley grimaces. Don't say money shot. Cum shot, Aziraphale ventures, cocking his head. Worse, Crowley says sharply. Far worse. Aziraphale hums thoughtfully, and for all the world, it feels like any argument they've had in the back of the bookshop or in some tavern over some wine. You know, I think I've changed my mind. Crowley miracles a damp cloth and starts scrubbing down his face. Yeah, what about? He asks, voice muffled into the towel. I think your mustache looks quite fetching when it's all covered, and if you say semen right now, I will discorporate you. Crowley closes his eyes and is very glad he has the towel to hide the flush in his cheeks. We needn't be ashamed of our proclivities, Aziraphale retorts. Didn't know you were a pervert, Angel, he says with no little amount of sarcasm. Pervert implies an abnormality, Crowley, Aziraphale says primly, and based on the popularity of the cum shot, don't look at me like that, I have to call it something. I am in the majority. Crowley drops his head against the couch cushion and groans. Chapter 3. Should I split this up into two? No. I'm too lazy. And that's the gospel truth. I'm too lazy to split this up into two videos. Lucky you. Chapter 3. Don't you think it's your turn to be on the receiving end? Aziraphale asks blithely as they take a short break for nibbles. Aziraphale had apparently brought a not insignificant amount of Crowley's favorite cheese, because in his words, he thought Crowley could use the emotional support. As if cheese was the ultimate in empathy. It is. Crowley coughs around the bit of cracker in his throat. Sorry, what? Well, I've been rather selfish, I think, Aziraphale muses. I could easily fillet you. Or perhaps a bit of analingus? Would you like that? Crowley's knees wobble at the thought of Aziraphale's head between his legs, mouth full of cock. His cock. Yeah, he finally manages to reply in between bits of flying cracker and cheese as he struggles to do anything but cough. Aziraphale hums happily. It's settled then. Crowley stuffs another cracker into his mouth and hopes Aziraphale isn't paying enough attention to see how red his face is. Trousers off, please, Aziraphale says, standing in front of him as Crowley reclines on the couch. At this rate, he's going to have to get rid of the blessed thing. Every time he looks at it now, he'll get aroused and embarrassed. A combination he's had enough of in the last 24 hours, thank you very much. Should you take them off? Fill a bit more time? Crowley asks, pulse fluttering in his throat. He has no idea how this will go. Based on their other activities, terribly. But maybe Aziraphale is much better at this, at taking the lead. Crowley doesn't know what he hopes for. If it's terrible, he won't have to feel so much. If it's good, that hardly bears thinking about. Aziraphale, with little protest, drops to his knees and reaches for Crowley's button fly. But he had a zipper. Changing pants, trousers. Maybe it's because he had so much trouble with the zipper that he put on button fly. His fingers drift over Crowley's prick and it perks up immediately, growing hard under even that pathetic bit of attention. He realizes he hasn't yet been on the receiving end of Aziraphale's touch. Not really. Just that pathetic attempt at a handjob earlier in the day. He doubts he's going to last very long, given how he's reacting to a simple brush of knuckles. Aziraphale snaps his fingers and the camera whirs on. 1 button, 2 buttons, 3. Crowley sucks in a breath just as Aziraphale presses his hand up under his shirt, fingers splayed wide over the flat of his stomach. His hand is warm. The touch is enough of a distraction that he almost doesn't notice when Aziraphale slips his hand into Crowley's pants and pulls his cock free. Oh, you are lovely, aren't you? Aziraphale says. Crowley would politely disagree. Not that his cock is hideous or anything. It's just a cock. Pubic hair might be a bit bright, and it does curve in a way that he thinks makes it look a little wonky. The phallic equivalent of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But Aziraphale is looking at it like he looks at a particularly expensive piece of cake, and Crowley's protests dry up in his mouth. Aziraphale strokes him twice, each touch lighting Crowley's body up, to the point he can't stifle his response. He's already gasping when Aziraphale releases him and begins to tug on his trousers in an attempt to get them off. They get caught around his knees, and Aziraphale makes a frustrated noise. Crowley moves to help, but misjudges, and one of his fingers goes directly into Aziraphale's mouth. The angel sputters and leans back. Perhaps you best do that, Aziraphale admits, shrugging off his button-down and revealing his beautiful chest. Crowley's been too embarrassed and not aroused enough to appreciate it before. But now, well, it's a very good chest. Up on your knees, please. Crowley's just kicked off his bottoms when the words register. Huh? Hands and knees on the couch. I'm going to eat you out. Just so matter of fact. The thought and the words make Crowley's eyes cross, and he scrambles to comply. His legs only bump up against Aziraphale's arms once, and not even that painfully. Now, I've never done this before, but I've read extensively. Aziraphale sounds like he's giving a lecture on eating ass, and Crowley's starting to feel a bit exposed with his rump in the air, bollocks hanging down between his legs in a surely obscene tableau. So you'll have to give me feedback if I do anything wrong. Aziraphale finishes, and before Crowley can reply, strong hands are prying apart his buttocks and a tongue is just there. Crowley yelps and falls flat on his face, dick crushed under the weight of his body. The sensation of Aziraphale licking him is still ringing through him. Crowley doesn't think he's felt anything like it before. None of that, Aziraphale says, and there's a rustling behind him as like Aziraphale is readjusting. Lift your hips. Crowley lets Aziraphale yank him around until one hand is supporting his hip and the other is pressed at the small of his back. Being held up has some sort of effect on Crowley's brain. He goes all fuzzy at the edges, a bit floaty. Aziraphale kisses the backs of his thighs, making him shiver. You really are beautiful. Crowley hangs his head, letting it drop onto his folded arms as he shakes nonsensically at the praise. He's not beautiful. What he is at a complete loss. Aziraphale nips at the swell of his ass, and then the tongue is back. This time, less insistent, a soft fluttering. Crowley moans. He can't help it. Feels like the world's best, most intimate massage. Then the fluttering turns into long, hot licks that make Crowley's muscles tense and release. He's gasping for air and making stupid noises, but he doesn't care. It feels good. More than good. And then Aziraphale does something indescribable that makes light flash behind Crowley's eyes. He nearly falls forward again, but Aziraphale holds him up. Crowley can feel the press of his nose against his ass, the hot flutter of his tongue, and the steady knowledge that it's Aziraphale doing it is enough to make him leak all over himself. Pre-cum dribbles down his shaft, and he's making an utter mess of a very nice sofa, but he can't care. Not right then. With a final obscene suck, Aziraphale pulls back and manhandles him until he turns over. He looks quite the picture. His face is red, his mouth wet. Crowley suddenly wants to kiss him, and for once he doesn't think he'd mind the probing tongue action Aziraphale seems to favor. But Aziraphale doesn't kiss him. Instead, he licks a white stripe on the underside of his balls, making Crowley's legs twitch before he takes the entire length of his cock into his mouth. Holy fucking shit, Crowley gasps, hand turning into fists at his sides. It's not enough, so he grasps uselessly at the couch cushion beside him. The sight of Aziraphale humming with pleasure, bobbing his head like he loves this, is enough to make Crowley certain he is going to implode. Not just from arousal, but from the sheer quantity of conflicting emotions rioting inside him. Then Aziraphale pulls off, just enough to suck gently on the head, tonguing the sensitive underside, and Crowley thinks he might have yelled, but he can't be sure. He definitely doesn't want to watch the tapes and find out. It's so good. Too good. Perfect. Aziraphale is perfect. And Crowley loves him so much. Always has, and now this. He's lost in the sea of sensation and love, and when Aziraphale moves and sucks just right, it all tumbles out. Fuck, Angel, I love you. Fuck so much. Blood roars in his ears as the pleasure finally crests and floods out of him. He gasps for air, and when he looks down at Aziraphale, it's only then he realizes what he's said. Shit. Aziraphale wipes his mouth with a dainty press of his fingers at the corners, like he's just sampled some. I don't know what that is. Volivans treat, and not swallow the load of Crowley's cum. I think perhaps we need to talk. Crowley's heart jumps into his throat. Chapter 4. An icy wave of dread washes through Crowley at Aziraphale's words. Had he really just declared his feelings during orgasm? Not only is that trite, but it is beneath him. He is a demon. Demonic declarations of love should at least involve dinner. Or flowers. You've already done those, he says to himself. Crowley stares at the ceiling and takes a deep breath. Do we? He asks in response to Aziraphale's question. Cool as possible. Cool as butter, not melting in his mouth. I don't understand that phrase. Cool as a demon. Yeah. Aziraphale huffs with effort as he rises to his feet. A blanket appears on Crowley's lap, and he has the presence of mind to be grateful, belatedly realizing he did not want to talk about this with his dick out. I think perhaps we should have discussed this prior to... Aziraphale gestures vaguely at the camera, which shuts off obligingly. Still on? Getting started, but you know how I get. Over-enthused. Cart before the horse and all. Crowley blinks. What do horses have to do with anything? Aziraphale rolls his eyes, but it's not without fondness, and Crowley's heart surges with hope. He hasn't ruined everything. Maybe Aziraphale won't blame him for spilling out his silly, soft feelings like a fool. Just another thing for them to push under the rug and not talk about. Crowley, Aziraphale says, very serious. I know our... It's very prissy. I know our attempts at pornography aren't going particularly well, but it's important you know I'm enjoying myself. And you needn't look quite so devastated about confessing your feelings. It's not as if I don't feel the same way. Crowley's vocabulary is reduced to a single word. What? Wait, you didn't know? Aziraphale has the decency to go a bit wide-eyed, even wring his hands a bit. What? I thought it was just one of those mutually understood things, Aziraphale protested, going pink about his angelic cheeks. You called us friends, Aziraphale shrieks. I meant friends, Aziraphale corrects, raising his eyes meaningfully. Oh, I was raising my eyebrows. That doesn't mean anything to me, Crowley hisses, no matter how much you wiggle your eyebrows. Well, I'm sorry. I thought we'd had enough innuendo-laden discussions throughout the last century for you to get it. But I forgot how absolutely thick-headed you can be, Aziraphale says, turning up his nose like Crowley has offered him pre-packaged cheese and onion sandwiches, which Crowley knows for a fact Aziraphale would rather discorporate than eat. Innuendo-laden? Excuse me? You couldn't just come out and say it? It was implied. Crowley groans and scrubs at his eyes. Despite his frustration, of course, this is what happens. This is how they get together. Aziraphale's just... Of course, bright, bubbly joy is threatening to burst from him. He pushes it down because it wouldn't do to show something like that. He scoffs for good measure. You absolute idiot. Well, that's not very fair, Aziraphale replies with a pout. I think it's bloody fair, Crowley bites out, but he's starting to smile because he can't help it. Aziraphale feels the same way. He knows, and he's not lecturing Crowley or pushing him away. In fact, maybe some kissing again, Crowley ventures. We have to finish the video, Aziraphale reminds him. Excuse me. Crowley shrugs. Yeah, but we can do some kissing first, off camera. Aziraphale brightens. With tongue? He likes the tongue. Crowley nods solemnly. I'll allow it. Just bloody budge up, would you? Crowley, I can't. My legs don't bend like yours. I can't shove it in at this angle. My dick would break. Beelzebub grimaces and shuts off the video before said dick does anything. They glance at Dagon, who glances back. They both clear their throats uncomfortably. Well, that was... Dagon begins. Best put that with the other torture devices on level 3, Beelzebub interrupts, not wanting to hear. With the sex perverts? Dagon ventures. Yep. Yeah, Beelzebub says as their flies finally recover and start buzzing. Even they don't want to see that. I love it. I absolutely love this little story. Holy shit, I'm so sorry that it took like an hour, but it really is adorable. Just so cute and and so fucking relatable. I mean, not like the whole video thing, but like just the whole first time doing things and just like the tongue. I like the tongue thing. No, but you're not doing it right. I love this story. It's so cute. So, that was Trouser Snakes and Porno Tapes by Summerofspock. And please go read it. Please go read it and, leave a kudo and comment and all that kind of good stuff, because this is an amazing story. The link's there. So thank you very much for joining me, and it's early and I still have some shitty wine to drink. So